Hello. Today we're going to be talking about filtering folders and labeling your emails. So in Gmail, we have all of these opportunities to label things over here. This is a label. It's also a folder. They're kind of the same thing. The difference between a label and a folder is that in a folder, the email is not in your inbox. To me, this makes no sense at all, so I just consider them the same thing. So labels and folders are basically the same thing. And you'll remember yesterday I had you set up your emails so you have the unread first. So I have all my unread emails up here, and then I have everything else down here, which I can pop open if I want to, but I don't want to. So over here, I have all of my folders, labels, whatever you want to call them over here. And as it turns out, I don't actually use these anymore. So I don't need this after school label. So I'm just going to hover and I'm going to remove this label. I don't like that there's all this stuff over here. So I'm going to go ahead and say, yeah, look at, I only had one email in there. Oh, that's silly. Now my emails are still there. I'm not deleting the emails. I'm just taking the label off of them. So I don't even know what that is. Accounts. What is this? This I'm going to keep because it always says always looking for these emails. That's the only label I ever use. Look, I even have one down here called do not delete. So I remember not to delete that one. But all this other stuff I'm going to go through later and I am going to get rid of these. Okay, so I've gone through and I've made these look like what my job looks like now. And so the other thing that you can do over here, if it's something that you use periodically, like the beginning of the year or something you don't need to see all the time, you can go ahead and hide these labels. So I'm going to go ahead and hide this one by clicking here and choose hide. And the other thing that you can do is I can click here and choose show if unread. So that means if there's a conversation, if there's an email in there that is unread, it'll show over here on the side. It'll display. If there's not an email that is unread, then it won't display. So I'm going to go ahead and, well, this one I'm going to show if unread. And I'm going to go ahead and remove this label. Okay. So I've got this cleaned up a little bit. Let me get rid of this one too. I feel much better about my life. This is all cleaned up. All right, so let's talk about how you make these things. Let me go back to my email here. So the first thing that you can do is you can go in and create folders by clicking on an email. So let's say I have this email by Microsoft and I want to go ahead and label it or folder. So here it says move to the folder or label it. These are really the same thing. If you move it to the folder, it's going to take the email out of your inbox. So this whole thing is your inbox and it's going to put it over here. It's also going to label it. To me, I just use the labels, but if it's something that for you, you decide you want to use a different type of inbox and you're going to move them all over, that's fine too. I'm going to label because it's the same process. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this label and it's going to show me all of the labels that I have. And I am going to go ahead and decide that this is probably info I will need. Like I actually made a label that's called probably information I will need. And I'm going to go ahead and click that. And now I'm going to apply it. And you'll see that right here it pops up and it says probably info I will need. If at any time I want to change that, I can. So I can go back here. Oops. I can click my label and it shows that it's labeled probably info I will need. But let's say I'm like, gosh, this isn't going to be probably information I will need, but this is an email I'm always looking for. So I can uncheck that and check this, and I'm going to go ahead and apply. And now it will show there. Now it's not showing up here because I read it. So I had to go under here and it's going to show right there. Microsoft, always looking for these emails. So I'm going to go ahead. Actually, I'm just going to go ahead and undo that because I do not want that in that folder there. So let me, oops, I moved it. It's okay. I'm going to undo that. I moved it instead of taking away its label. What a disaster. All right. Always looking for these emails, unclicking. Okay, so that's how you can make emails for labels you already have. Now, what if you need a new label? So I'm going to check this email. I can click here, and I can click Create New Email. And so here I'm going to put a new email that says, Pay attention to me. And I'm not going to nest it. Nest means that it's going to show up like this. So the FL Teach, which the foreign language teach, shows up under the polyglot. That means it's nested. In this case, I'm not going to nest it. So I'm going to uncheck that. I'm going to click Create. So now I have this email label called Pay Attention to Me. And I have labeled this Pay Attention to Me. So if I wanted to go ahead and select this one and name it Pay Attention to Me, I can. Go ahead and click that. And I'm going to apply. And now I have both of these that say Pay Attention to Me. If I click on Pay Attention to Me, voila, I have all of the emails that are labeled as that. So that's how you create labels. Folders. It's exactly the same thing whether or not you're creating a label in a folder. The only difference is if you move it to the folder, it takes it out of the inbox and puts it in the folder, which is something too complicated for my brain to understand. So I only talk about labels. Makes more sense to me. Okay. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to talk about how to automatically do that, because this is annoying. This can take up a lot of time if you're trying to always move stuff into these folders. And I'll tell you a secret later about these folders, but let's talk about how you can automatically filter those things. So now we're going to talk about filters. So I have this private comment in here. I have this private comment in here from Google Classroom. So my best buddy, Mr. EdTech or Miss EdTech, has added a private comment. So I want to make a label over here that says all private comments. So here's how I'm going to do that. I'm going to select this email. I'm going to come up here to the three dots, and I'm going to choose filter messages like these. When I do this, it's going to tell me, okay, so here is what's happening. Anything from this email address to, so this is, we're making a rule is what we're doing. Anything from this email address that's to, well, me, obviously, has the subject, there's nothing here, has the words, doesn't have, greater than, and you can add in all these other things. So first thing we're going to do is create the filter. Now, what I am not sure is if right now when I'm looking at this, I don't know if this is the same email every time or not. So I'm going to test this out. But I'm also going to put that in the subject, it has the subject has the words private comment. This way, it's going to say anything from Google Classroom that has a private comment is going to what? So first thing we're going to do is create the filter. So I'm telling it the rule. Here's the rule. Here's the second part of the rule. And now I'm going to create the filter. First of all, I'm just saying this is the emails I want you to capture. The next thing is I have to tell it what to do. So do I want it to skip the inbox? I don't in this case because I don't have my email inbox set up that way. I have my email where I just keep everything in the inbox. But if you choose to archive stuff, then you can go ahead and archive it. Do I want to mark it as read, star it, apply the label? This is what I want to do. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to make a new label that says Google Classroom private comments. Okay. So now I'm telling it what I want it to do. I'm going to go ahead and create that label. And so now I'm saying apply the comment, Google Classroom private comments. I don't want to delete it. Don't send it spam. I don't want to do any of these other things. Now down here, it's going to say also apply this filter to 2 matching conversations. So if you have in your inbox 1,000 private comments from first semester, you can go ahead and also put those into your private comments. Although at this point, I don't know if I would, because I would be using my private comments as a place to go and look like, hey, that's where all my private comments went. But you can also apply it. In this case, I am. And now I'm going to go ahead and create filter. So now I have these Google Classroom private comments. Click here. And it is saying here, EdTech added a private comment. EdTech added a private comment. I have one from the 18th and I have one from today. I'll know if this filter worked because if I get a private comment and it automatically gets labeled over here, automatically gets labeled here, then I know that it is working. Okay, next thing I can do, let's talk more about filters. So same thing, I get lots of emails from Gretchen. So Gretchen is somebody that I want to make sure that I have a folder or a label over here for her because her parents are always contacting me. So I want to make sure I save all of those for her. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select her. I'm going to create a filter that says anything from Gretchen or about Gretchen is going to go into this folder called Gretchen. So I'm going to select her, come over here, 3 dots, filter messages like these. Oh no, this one is from Google Drive. That's not going to work because if I create a folder that says from Google Drive, it's going to select all of these emails. That's not what I want at all. So what I actually want to do is I want to say anything from Gretchen Peratt. And in this case, I'm only just going to say from her. It doesn't need to say subject or has the words. And I'm going to create this filter. And so what do I want it to do? I want to, I don't want to mark it as red because then I'm not going to see it at all. I want to apply the label, and I'm going to create a new label called Gretchen. And then I'm going to go ahead and click create. Now, if you're going to do this for students, I would suggest that you consider making a parent label that is for the school year. So here I have Gretchen Peratt, and then I can have a parent label that said 2021. I'm going to put it under pay attention to me, and I'm going to click create. And then create filter. So over here under the pay attention to me, I have Gretchen Peratt. So I would suggest first creating a label that might be your school year, and then creating a label that says Gretchen Peratt. To be honest, I don't actually use these labels like this that often anymore. To me, if I need to define something about Gretchen, and remember, I've not deleted anything. So any email in here any email Gretchen has sent me since the beginning of time is going to show up when I search for it. So I find it easier to just leave everything in my inbox and say, if I needed on one day to find an email from Gretchen, then I would just type in her name and then I would look for what I needed. You can do other fancy things. So I'm searching for Gretchen, but let's say I remember Gretchen sent me an email and it had the words, it was from Gretchen, and it had the words camp. It's going to be a lot still. I'm going to go ahead and search for that, and now it's going to give me all of those emails. So I find it actually easier to just go ahead and search rather than taking the time to fill out all of these to create labels for everything. To me, that's super time consuming and it's not the way I want to spend my time, but many people want to have this all set up. And I do think it's a good idea to have for the private comments. Last thing, you can change the colors of these these labels. The last thing I'm going to show you over here is how you can edit the colors of your labels. So there's only a couple of mine that have colors, but let's say I want to change this Google Classroom color. Click here on the 3 dots, go up here to the top where it says label color, and then I can add all these different colors. So I'll go ahead and make that one green. This Google Classroom is green. If I wanted to change my always looking for these emails, I can go over here and I'll change it to red. And then here I've got the pay attention to me. If I come up here, the label colors, and I'll make that one blue. So here, because I have a sub label, I want to have it only pay attention to me. And there it is. Now, last question. Can you have more than one label on email? Absolutely. If I wanted to change this email or I wanted to add labels here, I could. So I could put always looking for this email and Google Classroom private comments, and this will put all of those. I don't find that particularly helpful for me for my workflow. Some people do. For me, I don't find it that helpful. So I don't tend to label. I don't use these that much. So being able to see from here isn't particularly helpful for me as far as organizing my life. But some people will want to do that, and they'll want it to be really colorful, which is totally fine because it's all about you and your email. So that's how you can take your emails and you can filter them and color them and put them into file folders if you want.